Welcome to the celebration of the life of my brother and my friend, Norman Riley. I will start off with Chief Baba Neil Clark, who was a dear friend of the Belafonte family and Norman and all of us. And I love this brother, man. So bring us home, Neil. Come on.
Yes, yes. Ashe, Ashe.
It's only fitting that Chief Baba Neil Clark opened the ceremonies because for many years, Norman Riley said Chief Baba Clark's percussion equipment every night before the Belafonte show and took it down. Oh boy. Just hang tough here with me, people. This is not easy today for me.
Sir.
Um, Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. Lord, will I teach me how to serve thee? Will thou teach me how to pray? Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. From thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Good evening. A time for everything. There was a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to a time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. What do workers gain from their toil? I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. I know that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it and nothing taken from it. God does it so that people will fear him.
Good evening. Why should I feel discouraged? And why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, my constant friend is he. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I sing because I'm happy, and I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches over me. Let not your heart be troubled. His tender words I hear, and resting on his goodness, I lose my doubt and fear. When by the path he leadeth, though one step I may see, his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I sing because I'm happy, and I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I know his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. 'cause I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches. He watches. Oh, I know, I know, I know. He watches me.
Oh, the Belafonte family is here representing today because Norman was such a big part of our life. That was Ty Stevens on vocals, one of our lead Belafonte singers, and Mr. Richard Cummings, the musical director for Mr. Belafonte forever. And I'm just so glad everybody came to celebrate my brother's life day.
When great trees fall. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly, our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity, our memory suddenly sharpened. And when great souls die after period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Space is filled with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. The words of Maya Angelou. Bear with me. Good evening. Again, good evening. To Susan, to the Riley family, to the friends and extended family members joined here this evening to pay homage to what I call a Renaissance man. A Renaissance man. My brother and friend Norman Metcalf Riley. I always used to call him by his full name. He didn't like it at all. But it was all right because we were boys. So Susan only gave me a couple minutes, but I wanted to just, we give a microphone to preachers, politicians, and lawyers, and I better choose being all three. Brother Jones. I do my best to be cognizant of time and respectful of everybody else. My name is Clifton Graves, Jr. It's a difficult day for me for obvious reasons, as we pay homage to this homecoming for Brother Norman, but also marks the, as I said, the Susan, the 17th anniversary of the transition and passing of my own father. So tough day for me, but God is good, and He'll give me the strength to get through this. I've had the pleasure and honor of knowing Norman Riley for over 52 years. We go back to high school days. We graduated together from the Gunnery Prep School in Washington, Connecticut. And looking over those 52 years and trying to figure out what moments, salient moments can I focus in on. We'd be here till tomorrow, but I thought I would just kind of narrow it down to actually, if I could, so just to the very beginning. And so I was just a country boy from North Carolina. My family moved up south to Connecticut. And yeah, up south, yeah. Malcolm up south. So I get to this place, this little town, Washington, Connecticut, and there was just it's upper class, predominantly white prep school. And it was culture shock for me, Southern boy coming here. And I meet and greeted by some of the brothers there. And the first thing they could talk about was, man, I'm glad you're here, but you sure gonna miss Norman Riley. Norman Riley? I said, who is this guy? Yeah, Norman was a great ball player, and I thought I was a ball player, so I said, oh man. And he said that he was a great scholar, and we're gonna miss him greatly. I said, what happened to him? Did he leave? He said, yeah, he just up and left. I said, what you mean he just left? He's like 15. He said, yeah, he just left school and went out to follow his dreams, pursue his aspirations. And so I already had great admiration with his brother. Who is this Norman Riley? So I got a chance to meet the whole Riley family before I met Norman. So everybody was filling me in. So the end of my junior year, Susan tells me, you know, guess what? Norman's coming back to school. It's a great one for I get a chance to meet this brother. And so Norman comes back, I think for our senior year, and he worked something out. He'd been out of school almost 2 years, right? Year and a half. He came back, worked it out so he could graduate. I don't know how he could do this. Only Norman could figure this out. He had been out of high school. Listen, he's in high school. He misses 2 years of high school, comes back, and the school agrees to let him graduate. He just does ABCD. Whatever. No. So we meet, we hook up right away because we both ball players and we love the arts and whatever. So we're talking and learning. I'm learning from him, and we hit it off right away. And so one of the first projects Norman had to do was he had to direct Thornton Wilder's Our Town play. Now, can you imagine Norman directing Thornton Wilder for a moment? Just let that pause for a moment. So, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So Norman, that was one of his projects. So he drafts me. He said, yo, man, you need to come on, you're gonna be in this play. I said, what? I don't know about this, and I'm just a baller, man. I'm gonna play point guard for the Knicks, bro, Joe. I'm gonna be second base for the Yankees. I ain't on the stage. He said, no, you gotta do this, man. So you know, he's very convincing, as you know. So he talked me into getting a small part on stage and doing something on this Thornton Wilder play. And I said, all right. So it broke ice and kind of gained confidence. A few months later, we had to do a project. As a senior project, every senior had to come up with a senior project in order to graduate, independent study project. So Norman, of course, had this great idea for myself, and our good friend Martin Love, who's in Mississippi. He couldn't be here, but he sends his love to the family, condolences. He said, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go to Danbury, Connecticut. Danbury represents, you hear from Larry in a minute, so I can see a few other folks from Danbury here. We're gonna go to Danbury, which is where I sent home, and we're gonna get an mentorship program at the Harambe House. And then so we can mentor young brothers and sisters. So we thought it was a great idea. So Norman wrote up the project, of course, because he's a great writer. All living in one room on mats on the floor with a hot plate, because microwaves hadn't been invented then. No cell phone. So all we had was a hot plate. Some of y'all remember hot plate and a record player. That was it. And so we were teenagers, so we were good. So Norman, we brainstormed we listened to Funkadelic and Last Poets. And Norman said, well, I got an idea. Why don't we form a spoken word group, a poetry group, teenagers? We said, yeah, all right. So we're going back and forth. We good. So Norman says, we gotta come up with a name. So we said, all right. So we bouncing back and forth. And Norman said, I got a great idea. Let's call ourselves Black Sambo. We said, what? We started laughing like you are. We said, Black, come on, no? Because old school people remember the stereotypes associated with Black Sambo, negative stereotype connotations. And Norman said, yeah, I know. But that's the idea. Norman always thinking out the box. That's the idea. We'll flip the script. We'll call ourselves Black Sambo, and we'll emit such a positive message, political message, social message, that folks will forget about that old stereotype and only think about us, Black Sambo. So we said, yeah, that sounds great. So we formed Black Sambo, poetry with teenagers. And we eventually bring in some of the folks, the great talent from Danbury, Larry, Clark, other folks that were here. We had singers, we had African dancers, we had poets with spoken word. So we had performances every week in front of the Harambe House, on the front porch, in the yard, we do performances. And word spread, we were like celebrities then. You know, like, hey, teenagers, celebrities, not getting paid. But celebrities nonetheless, we had a great time. And word spread about Connecticut. We ended up performing in Middletown and Hartford, Connecticut, where I'm from, and in New Haven, on New Haven Green, where Funkadelic and Harry Belafonte had both performed. So we thought we all that in 2 bags of chips. You got to perform, got to actually be interviewed on Yale's radio station, Yale, YBC Radio. Again, teenage, we're still in high school. Great time. But then reality sunk in. We had to go back to the gunnery graduation and go on with our lives. So I remember the summer discussions we had, 3 of us, Norman, Martin, and I, because all 3 of us, were fairly decent students, and so we all got accepted into college. And Martin and I got accepted into Tufts University outside of Boston. Norman got accepted into Hamilton, full scholarship, Hamilton College here in New York. Pre-med. Norman was brilliant, young know this, brilliant. And we had a meeting, and so Norman tried to talk us into, well, we really don't have to go to college. We can just stay Black Sambo. We can make some albums, we can perform, and we can make it. He had us going for a minute. And then Martin and I looked at each other and said, well, Martin, know the difference is, the difference is at Tufts, we get room and board. And so we got a roof over our head and food every day. I'm not sure Black Sambo would do that for us. Norman said, yeah. So he backed off a little bit, but we wish each other the best. He wished us well. And so we went on a certain way. So we get to Tufts, and because of the seed planted by this brother Norman Riley, got involved, engaged in the Black Theater Company there at Tufts. Reggie Life, some of you remember Reggie Life, great director right from New York. He was the director of the program of the project there. Got involved in that token. He knew Norman, knew Clayton, knew Mark. And so we got involved there, invited Norman up, and he came up and did some poetry there on the campus. Left Tufts from Georgetown Law School, got formed Uhuru, the actual ensemble, the only Black theater group on the law school campus in the country, formed because of inspiration from this brother, and got invited Norman down. He came and performed with us on the campus at Howard, on the campus auditorium. And then, in every way we would come, he would always say to me, whatever you do, I don't care what you do, or whatever, just keep writing, keep performing, keep writing, keep performing. And so I got married the year before I graduated from law school, and I invited Norman down to do a poem at the wedding, so you remember this. And so Norman was busy here, of course. He said, I get a train, the wedding was Saturday afternoon, 1 o'clock. So Norman said, I get a train first thing that morning, I'll be there. He said, that's not my thing, wedding poems, but I'll come and do for you. I said, okay, Norman. So 1:15, I'm standing in the churchyard with my white suit on, waiting for Norman. And suddenly a cab comes up. Norman jumps out the cab. Dashiki, jeans, sandals, shades. And so, but he was my boy Norman. Said, hey, we good, we great. So then we walk into the church, and all these eyes turned to look at Norman. So Norman felt a little uneasy, so he whispered to me, say, C-Grade. He called me C-Grade. C-Grade, you think I'm appropriate dress for this occasion? I said, we started laughing. I said, don't matter that, bro. You here. We got to do this. And so we did. He did a beautiful poem, but that was Norman. Norman's gonna be himself and be true to himself all the time. And you had respected, and I respected him and loved him for that. So I left law school, went to North Carolina, and got connected again with the North Carolina Black Repertory Company. And brother who ran that company knew Norman, knew Clayton, knew Mark. And so I said, Norman, you got to come down to North Carolina and check this out. And that's when Norman said, no, I ain't coming south. I said, but no. Things have changed a little bit in the South. I grew up, he said, yeah, but I still don't trust the South, and I don't trust me in the South. So I said, so again, I respected that, and we moved on. But all the time, he kept encouraging and motivating me to keep writing, keep studying, keep writing, which I did, and I encouraged him for that. So.
Good evening, everyone. Clifton brought me back because I was that young teenager that was watching him, Norman, and Martin Love have a good time up in the attic. So that brings me back. My deepest condolences to Mark, Susan, and the family. Peace and love. We are here to celebrate and honor the life of my brother, mentor, friend, Norman Riley. Norman now elevated to the plane of our esteemed ancestors. My name is Larry Moore Morning. I'm the director of the Bill S. Curtis Harami Center for Youth and Community Services, the program that Clifton just mentioned, a nonprofit program for 50+ years, providing educational, social, economic, and general supports for inner city youth and their families in the Danbury community area. I became the director of the Harambee program in 2016 because Norman Riley, heir apparent to the director position after Bill Curtis retired, was hard at work in New York City, writing and performing music and his poetry. I was introduced to the Harambee program at the age of 12 in 1968, where I met Norman. He was 16. Even then, Norman had an impact on my peers and I, redirecting our energies towards positive focuses in the civil rights. He taught us about Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Angela Davis, Huey P. Newton, the Black Panthers, and so many more. Norman helped us comprehend Frantz Fanon, Richard Wright, James Baldwin, Ralph Ellison, and a ton of others. The directions of focus that Norman received from Bill Curtis, he passed on to us, giving us creative enrichment, forming the Harambee Ensemble Theater Group, the Black Samuel Poets Poetry Group, along with writing and music workshops, producing plays, concerts, creative writer magazines, and so much more. I speak here now for so many of us when I say that we are better human beings, better at what we do because of the teachings, mentorship, and friendship we had with Norman. And I'd like to offer this piece in respect to Norman's legacy. My brother, mentor, friend. The mind of a revolutionary, order of organization, shifting in and out of change, sharing the space above the promises never kept, tearing at the social fabric. Enlightenment, a glance away, no one looking but everyone staring. Chased by the rising, saved by the setting in the sky, down here on the ground. Power can be recognized even without its usual ballistic expression. The struggle persists. Broad as its reference experiences of our relationships to our environment, a house party in Connecticut, a djembe drummer on 125th Street, a poetic refrain, seed, harvest, a cultural revolution, the story, the song, and we keep singing our song by action or inaction, uncertainty, the unknown. When the sunrise, sunset seems to pause a moment to reflect. Stories tell us, stories told, the hero, the heroine at the gate, the palace within, the whisper. Only we can hear. Peace, my brother. God bless. Thank you. Chief Baba.
Wake up from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. Wake up from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. Wake up from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Oh, so is life. Oh, so is life. Oh, so is life. So is life. So is life, ah, so is life, oh, so is life, Abatiwa, so is life.
Olivia Clark, Sir Cummings, and Ty Stevens. I never know what my brothers are going to do, but I know whatever it is going to be good. Because that's what we do. That's all we know how to do. And that's why we're here today, celebrating the life of my brother, my friend, Norman Riley. Brothers Clifton and Brother Larry. Thank you so much for sharing the times that Norman shared with you and you experienced. Because that's the type of person Norman Riley was. Norman and I go back 40 years. It was such a different brother when I met him. I was like, man, I just come from graduate school at San Diego State and come to New York, and Norman and we just had so much that we had in common as Black men, both very much involved in theater, and also very much involved in sports. Because Norman was a great football player, and I was an All-American football player. And we shared this love of life. And Norman asked me, he was working at Henry Street Settlement at the time, and he was doing a play. And he asked me to come and light it for him because I am a lighting director by trade. And it was just magical how we were able to work together. And the people at Henry Street was like, this was just a little simple play, but by the time me and Norman got done with it, it was like, it was a hit. They actually had people standing out front to get inside. It was even bigger than anything that they were producing. They just didn't understand the magic that Norman had. Truly, Norman was a very giving individual. what he would do for people. And he would go out of his way to make things happen and give up himself. Very unselfish, very unselfish. And I don't, financially know how he would do it because he didn't have much himself, but he would make it happen somehow, some way. And we loved him for that. The thing that Norman did for me that was probably one of the greatest things in our relationship was that Norman took care of my back the years that I was at Belafonte Enterprises. Being a tour manager for Harry Belafonte is not one of the easiest jobs in the world. Ooh, boy, patience, prayer, and perseverance. The 3P principle comes into full effect when you talk about the Belafonte experience. But Norman was there, day in, day out. Norman had a ton of responsibilities. And when you're managing a company like that, you're touring the world with 35 plus people, you have to rely on folks to do what they say they're gonna do, to be where they're supposed to be at, to make things happen the way they're supposed to, because if it doesn't, it makes for a really tough time. In the world of Belafonte, there is no such thing as mistakes or such thing as I'm sorry. He didn't take none of that. So he had to be on top of it. And Norman, his job, he had so many different jobs, but Norman would set the stage before each performance, make sure Baba Neil Clark stuff was straight. Cummings was good. Brother Philip over there that's doing the stream over there, Mr. Wardrobe man, making sure he was straight. And set stage every night before the performance. Make sure every instrument was in place, everything was tuned and ready to go. And after he got done with that job, he had to do then the biggest job, get Mr. Belafonte to the stage. Was not an easy task. It's like, Norman, look, you call 5 minutes, let's get Harry to the stage. He ain't dressed, Jones. Him and Philip.
Wasn't my fault, I
They're
swear.
They're fighting, yeah. I go in the dressing room, Harry's in his underwear and socks, and they're wrestling. I'm like, man, we got a few minutes. Get dressed. Man, Harry had these whistles, and they placed on a certain kind of way. He had this hot tea drink that had to be poured, set, and everything else. And just like, night after night, this was Norman's duties. Man, no matter where we were in the world. And once the show was over, we had to take everything down, put it in the truck, and try to get some rest to get ready for the next show. Also was in charge of the luggage. 35 plus people. Everybody got 2-3 pieces. Harry got 15 pieces. Miss Belafonte got another 15 pieces. And sometimes he would knock on my door at 2-3 o'clock in the morning to make my room the first room, so I would know that he was up and doing what he had to do. And this would happen day in and day out, day in and day out. And Norman was making sure that everything happened. And I just loved him for that. I didn't even have to wonder whether or not we were going to get there on time, whether or not it was going to happen on time. Norman was just an on-time kind of person. And I just loved him for just being able to do the things that he did. And had Mr. Belafonte going, because he look at Norman and say, man, how does it get by? How do you have so much intelligence, man? I sit here and I talk to you, and we talking about the world, and Norman is just throwing it at him. And Harry's saying, this dude is a genius. What you doing working for me? I should be working for you. But But man, Norman was a one-of-a-kind kind of guy. If you had a chance to meet him or had a chance to be with him and work with him, which most of you guys have in this room, you understand what I'm saying. I'm gonna miss that brother, but I'm just so happy that he's in a better place now, breathing all right, calm, relaxing, Susan. And I'm just glad that I was one of his closest friends, and we shared a lot together. And he taught me a lot, and he's so much a part of my life and a part of my family's life. Because I'll share one more thing before I close. I have 2 daughters, and Kim and I would want to go away and just spend some time together, you know, as a couple. And we say, well, you know, if we go away, who's gonna watch the girls? Uncle Norman. Uncle Norman, here come Uncle Norman, gets on the train, brings his bag, brings his sweet and low and all of his creamers and everything. And he come out and spend the night and spend the weekend with the girls. And the girls loved it. He would walk them to school, bring them back home from school. Norman would make cookies and cakes and pies. And they tear up the kitchen, but man, they had a great time. They had a great time. And I just, Kim and I would come home and be like, wow, the kitchen is wrecked. But the girls, they would, hey, Daddy, Uncle Norman, we cooked, we did this. And you know what, it tasted good too. Look crazy, but it tasted good. You know, but yeah, man, it's, you know, for somebody like a Norman Riley who has those kinds of talents and it can be such a gentle giant and such a personable person, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful to have had him in our lives, because they don't make them like that no more. We used to call Norman the last of the Neanderthals. You know, that was it. So that's my story for my friend Norman. Where's my brother Mark at?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for coming to honor my brother. You know, and this has been said by a lot of people before, but my brother Norman was truly a unique individual. He cut an extraordinary path across this life, creating and giving in equal measure. From the time we were kids, Norman always looked to do things his way. That meant drawing from an enormous wellspring of personal creativity that, as he became an adult, allowed him to pursue several disciplines at the same time. He was a writer, he was a poet, he was a musician, he was an educator. He approached each with purpose and a dedication to excellence that was apparent to each life he touched. Yet this doesn't paint a total picture of my brother. As kids, I was struck by the fact that Norman Riley would eat just about anything. And by that, I mean anything. If I, the picky eater in the family, didn't want something, I just gave it to Norman. And Norman saved me several whippings over our childhood, because my mother was old school and was one of those eat everything on your plate type of people. So beyond that, though, the love all 3 of us had for music was developed early through both our parents and marching in a fife, drum, and bugle corps in the town where we were raised, Newtown, Connecticut. My sister Susan played the fife, and today, all these years later, she's an accomplished flautist. Norman learned drumming in that drum corps, and everyone who knew him saw the love of the percussive arts blossom and flourish throughout his life. Norman's love of literature was nurtured during his high school years at a school then called the Gunnery, now called the Frederick Gunn School. His militant advocacy was honed in Danbury at Breakthrough Harambee. I remember it always being Breakthrough Harambee. He made lifelong friendships there, as you heard, and learned the finer points of the percussive arts from the great Bill Curtis. Having moved to New York City, Norman began to work at the Henry Street Settlement's New Federal Theater, where he worked with the legendary Woody King Jr. Norman began to meld music with poetry as he moved into adulthood as well. During a time when the music business didn't really understand or respect musicians / poets, in other words, people who did both, Norman stood firm with the concept he created, Underground Streets. Listening to his work now, I'm amazed at how far ahead of his time he was. Norman also wrote prose, usually focused on things that were his passion, like black quarterbacks in the NFL. He wrote for a time for the NAACP magazine, The Crisis. Again, as always, a fierce advocate for black rights. A big part of Norman's life was the pride he felt working for the great Harry Belafonte. He was able to travel around the world, and his discipline was well known to all the people in the Belafonte crew. And all the while, he wrote poetry, music, and a great deal more. With all he was doing, Norman took time to nurture other writers. He held a weekly writers' workshop in his apartment, imparting his knowledge to literally scores of aspiring writers. He could be demanding, but I think his students were the better for it, and I think they would tell you that. Norman had what some might call quirks, things he approached differently than most people. He was a vegetarian before it was fashionable, way before it was fashionable. He refused to celebrate holidays, not even his own birthday. He considered most modern technology, to be somewhat akin to voodoo, and he avoided it at all costs. He was a compulsive news watcher, much preferring it to regular TV shows. And by the way, for him, the known world ended at the Hudson River. I remember him browbeating me when we first moved to New Jersey, saying, "You moving to Jersey?" Over and over and over. "You moving to Jersey? And after we moved, you're living in Jersey?" Yet most of all, my brother was generous. If you were his family or his friend or needed something, Norman was there for you. He'd give you the shirt off his back, and if he was shirtless, he'd borrow one to give you. I'm going to miss my brother far more than I can put into words. I ride my bike 5 days a week, and since his passing, I swear I can hear his voice in my ear asking me questions. Silently, I just respond, "Norman, I love you." My daughter Vivica is now going to remember her Uncle Norman.
Hi everyone, I'm Viv, I'm Norman's niece, and I'd like to just share a few memories that I have with my uncle. My Uncle Norman was one of the coolest people that I've ever met. Ever since I was really little, my dad would drop me off at my Uncle Norman's house, and those were some of my favorite days from my childhood. And I would either stay for the day or just for a sleepover. And I feel really lucky to say that we never did anything like watch TV or play on an iPad, which is how a lot of people spend their family time now. Instead, we would play and listen to music until I fell asleep doing so. And the instrument that I remember the most was a rain stick that my uncle had. I was obsessed with it, and it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen when I was a kid. And all it was just the sound of the rain. And in retrospect, I think that explains why I live in London now. My uncle and I had a few inside jokes. One of them was about Mars. There used to be a restaurant in New York called Mars 2112. If anyone hasn't heard of it, you can Google it and read the reviews. Most of them say it's terrible, awful, memorably horrible. But I disagree, because when I was a kid, my uncle told me that this place was the epitome of dining. He promised me that it would feel like I had stepped onto Mars and I would eat food from space that would triumph any food that I'd ever had on Earth. My Uncle Norman and I planned our trip to Mars 2112 for probably about 10 years. And then when the day finally came, we showed up and the restaurant had closed permanently and we never got to go. I just want to finish by saying that I know everyone has different ideas of what happens when somebody passes on, but I like to think that my Uncle Norman is sitting at a table at Mars 2112 with a bowl of mac and cheese. And I'll miss my uncle very much, but I'm glad to know that he isn't in any pain anymore. And I'm very grateful to see how much he meant to so many people.
Even at an early age, Norman was very spiritual and in tune with his surroundings. Grayson has vivid memories of Norman going off into our dining room to meditate. She also remembers asking him why he was a vegetarian and was both intrigued and horrified as he described how animals were tortured before we ate them. But this was Norman being honest and passionate about his beliefs, just as he was in all aspects of his life. He was truly one of the kindest human beings on the planet. A couple of weeks ago, I was able to spend a few hours with him as he lay in a hospital bed. Even though we hadn't seen each other in a long time, there was an instant connection. Norman couldn't really speak, so I held his hand and we shared some peaceful, quiet time together. A week later, Norman passed away. The day after he died, a friend of mine was filling in as a DJ at her local radio station. As I sat and listened at my desk in my home office, I heard the first few notes of Spill the Wine play on the radio. Wow. I froze. How could this be? My friend didn't know that this was our song. She didn't know that Norman had died. But then I realized that this was Norman and he was saying goodbye. Norman, we love you. We thank you for bringing us so much music and love into our lives. Thank you.
First, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to attend this service of celebration of Norman's life, whether in person or by Zoom or Facebook. I promise to be brief because everyone who's spoken today has captured that special spirit of Norman's, of a big, loving heart, of generosity and kindness, thoughtfulness, support, and mentoring in dealing with others, and of course, his wide-ranging artistic talent, cutting across a spectrum of poetry, writing, playwriting, music, and theater. And of course, there was the trash talking, cussing Norman. It was full of fun and could always make us laugh. So what I'd like to speak of briefly is the last leg of Norman's life's journey through his lung transplant surgery. He lived for more than 3 years with someone else's lungs in his body that extended and sustained his life. As those of us who spent time with him know, he struggled, sometimes mightily, just to breathe. But what enduring lessons his struggle teaches us. He kept writing as he fought for breath. He kept composing and recording his music as he fought for breath. He kept beating his congas as he fought for breath. And all the while it was, Susan, let me help you write. And Susan, let me listen to you play your flute. Creating and sharing his artistry was all part of the joy of life to him. His fight to breathe also taught me about the power of love, hope, determination, and courage in the face of suffering and adversity. No matter what Norman taught me, for as long as you have breath, you have life. to use your every God-given talent to be all that God intended you to be. And finally, with his last remaining breaths, Norman asked me if I was ready to let him go. That last week, I didn't answer. Norman will always be with me here and with all of us. But he used his remaining breaths to speak of what really mattered, to say the things that we'd never said in a lifetime together. He said to me, you know, I really love you, Susan. And I said to him and repeated every day till his last day, I love you too, Norman, very much. I have been so proud to be your twin and witness to all of your great gifts and your loving, giving, inspiring heart. And now we're here. As I conclude my remarks, I want to say a special word of thanks to my own church in Brooklyn, its rector, Stephen Polikas and Deacon Jennifer Webster, and to the special friends and family who dropped everything to be with him in his dying. Joy, Hagar, Derry, Tina, Larry, Elke, Amanda. And lastly, I want to say thanks to Montefiore Hospital. Oh, and I didn't mean to, I meant Grayson too, sorry. And lastly, I want to give a special shout out to Montefiore Hospital, who gave him renewed life for 3 years and stood by him and with him to the very end. It was not in vain. So let's treasure our every breath, everyone. Norman would want us to do that. Thank you.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear. Ere I was believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I had already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we have been there 10,000 years, bright shining like the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise. Yes, than when we first began. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch
clean leaps into night without the sound of your goodbye. Nobody will ever miss you like I do. You looked so well, we all were there, balloons and cameras everywhere. Nobody will ever miss you like I do. Even when the good times weren't always good, something about the good times you always understood how to live without much more than the will to survive. A man of many words, a damn good life. When midnight fell, we shook the rafters. One last dance forever after. Nobody will ever miss you like I do. Nobody will ever miss you like I do.
Thank you, Sister Tina, for that beautiful original composition that you put together. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our end of our celebration. We're going to go home with Norman in our hearts and minds, and he will live on through us and all those wonderful moments that we all shared. Susan, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to participate and do what I do. And Baba Nick Clark, Richard Cummings, Ty Stevens, my Belafonte family, Philip Roder, over there, Sipo Kunini. We got some more of our brothers and sisters here from the Belafonte family, but just want to just say thank you for everybody for coming out. And yeah, hold on.
thank all of you for being here. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us in this celebration. And I want to thank all of you for being such a wonderful friend to Norman Riley and for allowing him to be your friend as well. Thank you. And I know I missed Derry, Troy, so many people, Joey, so many people who, Karen, have just been there throughout, particularly the last 3 years, which were horrific. I wanted to thank Nancy, who called in a moment of tremendous panic I was having, and she helped me. And David, who arranged our family Zoom conferences so we could all stay connected as best as possible. And so that Norman would feel like we could all still be together. So thank you, Juan, thank you all, with a very grateful heart on behalf of Norman, and I know I speak for him. Thank you.
And most of all, Ali Khan, thank you so much for technically keeping us together here today.